Part of our problem is we don't accept the obligation to perpetuate our history, the knowledge of our history to each and every generation. And that's something when a whole people refuse knowledge about themselves, that they are so much conditioned to reject learning about themselves that they will in contempt turn their head and say no, while they have under their arm at the same time the New York Daily News, which vilifies, insults us, degrades us, and ignores us all the time.
Turner, Professor Emeritus of African and African American Politics and Social Policy in the College of Arts and Sciences, shaped generations of black scholars and other diverse students over the last 50 years. His early stewardship of the center during an era of enormous civil turmoil put Cornell at the forefront of Africana studies and provided a template for understanding and articulating black experience that is now recognized and replicated in institutions throughout the world. One of 8 children, Turner was born in Brooklyn in 1940 and raised in public housing in Lower Manhattan. His father was a laborer, and Turner grew up with the expectation that he would join the garment trade. He attended the High School of Fashion Industries, and upon graduating in 1957, he got a job at Ripley's clothing store. In his free time, however, he was venturing out to experience the city's jazz scene, and he soon began delving into the rich culture of Harlem. It was there he found a mentor in Pan-Africanist historian John Henrik Clarke and a lifelong inspiration in Clarke's close friend, the minister and human rights leader Malcolm X. Turner often saw Malcolm X speaking on the corner of 125th Street and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard, and the experience made a lasting impression on Turner, whose own research on Malcolm X's political philosophy would later inform the acclaimed PBS series Eyes on the Prize. Malcolm was a master teacher, Turner would often say. You couldn't listen to him and not come away with something. It was more than charisma. It was the way he was able to use the language of our people and make them understand. Turner left the garment business for social work, first with the Mobilization for Youth program at Columbia University's School of Social Work in 1961. Looking to pursue a career in academia, Turner and his wife Janice Turner moved to Michigan, where Turner earned a bachelor's degree from Central Michigan University. He eventually earned a master's degree in African Studies from Northwestern University, a certificate in African Studies from Northwestern's African Studies Center, and a PhD from Union Graduate School in Cincinnati. As a 26-year-old Northwestern University graduate student, Turner led more than 100 black students to conduct a 2-day sit-in at the university bursar's office to protest discrimination and improve campus conditions, an action that led to the creation of Northwestern's African American Studies Department. Turner was gaining as much attention for his academic ideas as his activism. Cornell's Afro-American Society was so impressed by a presentation he delivered at a conference at Howard University that he became the top pick to lead a newly proposed Black Studies Center at Cornell University. In June 1969, Turner accepted the position, saying the program had the potential to be, quote, one of the most far-reaching, imaginative, and creative programs in the country. As Turner later recounted, he arrived at a university that had few tenured black professors and no courses in African American history or culture. The Africana Center, located at 320 Waite Avenue, opened its doors in September of 1969 with 160 students, 10 courses, and 7 faculty members. Turner served as the Africana Center's director from 1969 to 1986 and returned for a 5-year term from 1996 to 2001. During his tenure, he created a robust intellectual environment at the center, bringing in speakers such as historian Vincent Hardy and political scientist and activist Ronald Walters, and recruiting a diverse array of scholars such as cultural psychologist William Cross and Manning Marable. Among his many honors, Turner received the Association of Black Sociologists Award of Distinction, and he served as president of the African Heritage Studies Association and on the editorial boards of several Black Studies journals. Under Turner's leadership, the Africana Center became a means for connecting students to service learning projects and community development initiatives. Turner and his wife Janice, a retired associate dean in the College of Arts and Sciences, were both deeply involved with the Ithaca community. Turner served on the board of directors at Southside Community Center and chaired the Tompkins County Human Rights Commission. He also worked with the Multicultural Resource Center as well as the Village at Ithaca, where his work inspired a collaborative effort with the Ithaca City School District known as the Equity Report Card. Turner was also active on the international stage. He participated in the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa and served as national organizer of the Southern Africa Liberation Support Committee. In 1973, he co-chaired the International Congress of Africanists in Ethiopia, and in 1974, he served as chair of the North American delegation to the 6th Pan-African Congress. And Turner was also a founding member of the famed African-American lobbying organization, Trans-Africa.
But any event, we'd sit around in the evening on the bench out talking, and someone would say, "Do you know that Africans came before Columbus?" Now there are two ways you can respond to something you don't know. You could say, "Oh yes?" Especially if you talk about Africans coming before the Europeans got here. That would be a wonderful thing. You might say, "Oh, I'd like to know more." But most of us respond by saying, "Oh nigga, where'd you get that from?" You always talking out your neck. What did the great Carter G. Woodson say? If you control the way a man or a person thinks, you don't have to worry about what they'll do, because you already have them controlled. You see, when you have a people captured, it's not when it's obvious. When you have the chains on their feet and their ankles and their wrists, we would all say, those people are captured. I want to contend to you they are not. As long as you have to keep them chained, you haven't got them. It's when you can remove the chain, take it off their ankles, when you can walk away and leave them standing there with no chain. You can go around the corner and they won't leave. Then you've got them captured. See?
It's all right to talk about where struggle is taking place in other places, and we honor that. But we must honor the struggle that is taking place here for us to be known. How is it possible for a James Turner, the son of a laboring class, not the working class? Those black people at that time were the laboring class. They were not formally part of the working class, if you get what I mean. And many of us come from that. What would make it possible for me to come from a family of that class, out of the public housing projects, to be standing here at this august place, in this company? How did that happen? It was the intervention of the new abolitionists, the new liberation strugglers, those people who left Howard and who went south to engage not only the overt enemy, those violent white terrorists that we knew in the Klan, but the structural base, the institutional base in law and practice, and made it an omnipresent political issue at the national level.
Today, I wanted to do a tribute, an honor to a great man. The man I'm talking about is Dr. James Turner. I want to kind of talk about who he was in general, but more personally who he was to me. I'm honored that I met a man like Dr. James Turner and was taught by him. And I'd like to just share a few thoughts. Number one, Dr. James Turner was first and foremost a race man. That's an expression you don't hear much anymore. By this we mean he was a man who was unashamedly, unapologetically, and unequivocally devoted, dedicated, and committed to the cause of uplifting and advancing black people. Dr. Turner chose to do that through education. Let me explain something to you. He was busy building, brick by brick, student by student, book by book, course by course, and professor by professor, an entire academic discipline at Cornell University. The way I actually met him, a brother named Brian Sales, who I knew from the city of Syracuse, he kept saying, "Yo, AGYEI, you gotta meet this dude named Dr. James Turner, man. He's nationalist, he's a Malcolm X student. He spoke to Malcolm personally. He was a student of Dr. John Hayward Clark. He was a student of Richard B. Moore, and he's the head of this department at Cornell University." Because Brian was in the department at this point, working towards his master's degree, and he eventually did get his master's degree. And I would listen to Brian, but I didn't see myself as being a graduate student type of person, or a person that was going to get a master's or a doctorate degree. At that time in my life, I was in my 20s at that time, family. But I mean, every time I saw Brian Sales, you'd love Africana Studies, and it would love you. It just so happens, as fate would have it, that some students, undergrads at Cornell, invited me to come speak, because I think they were trying to get the university to recommit to the Africana Studies and Research Center. I think that was the issue at that time. Remember, I was a student activist at Syracuse University, and we fought for the exact same thing, for the university to keep its word and to recommit in terms of money and resources to the African American Studies Department at Syracuse. So this was right up my alley. So I gave my rally, people were clapping and applauding, and it was really good. And this brother comes up, dressed very nice, kind of Afrocentrically, real deep voice. "Young brother, that was a great speech you gave there, brother." I said, "Thank you, sir." He said, "Yeah, I like the way your mind works. You have a keen analytical mind, and you seem to be for the race." I said, "Yes, sir, all the way for the race." And we talked. He wound up giving me his card. He introduced himself as Dr. James Turner, the legendary professor that Brian Sales had been telling me about for like 2 years. He's here giving me compliments after this speech. He says, "Brother, you would be a fine candidate to come here and be part of our master's degree program in Africana Studies." And do you know that from that day, I went to visit Dr. Turner just about every Saturday for about a whole year. During that year of me seeing him every week, we became close. You know, he became like an official Jugna to me. Like a second father to me. Not just a guy I go to his class and he tells me something interesting about history, and he wasn't judgmental. Dr. Turner never came at me like that. He never came from a judgmental, "I told you so, you should have done this, you should have known better." Never. This man changed my life. This man helped me understand the importance of scholarship. Now remember, at this point I was 27 years old when I started the master's program at Cornell and at the Africana Studies and Research Center, and I was very hardcore, hard line, family. You couldn't tell me nothing. I just knew it all. I had the hard line, wasn't the most sympathetic. And Dr. Turner is one of the people who helped me understand, brother, being a revolutionary for your people don't mean that you got to be rigid. It doesn't mean you got to be hard-headed. It doesn't mean that you can't listen to other people and other points of view. In fact, the revolutionaries must listen to other people and other points of view, because they're the ones that are going to take all these ideas that everybody else is talking about and they're going to put it to work. He told me the difference between a traditional intellectual and an organic intellectual. This is a brother that helped me understand that, man, we're not going to like everybody, Brother AGYEI. You can't just work with people you like. You're going to have to sometimes work with people who maybe you don't like, but if you can respect them, that was his thing. If you can respect the way they operate, their character, their competence, whatever. His 3 things was the 3 C's he taught us over and over again: consciousness, competence, and commitment. Competence, consciousness, and commitment. And those are the 3 C's I have tried my best to live by since first hearing him say that way back in 1995. This brother, Dr. James Turner, is not a brother that just tooted his own horn, family. His work spoke for him, and his work as an educator was best represented in the students he taught. You're talking about some of our country's finest community activists, institution builders, filmmakers, musicians, lawyers. We're talking about Sophia Elijah, Dr. Jared Ball, Dr. Scott Brown, Rosa Clemente. We're talking about people like Jonathan Fenderson. We're talking about, I mean, I can go on. Kimberly Crenshaw, who famously coined the term intersectionality. I mean, we can go on and on and on. All of these are people, just a small group of people, and myself, to a king, to a soldier, to an educator, to a jegna, whose work will be shown in the works of thousands and millions of people. Peace and Black Power, family. Thank you for watching.